you. Before we get into the agenda, there has been a request to move letter C under ordinances and resolutions to be discussed after new business. Can I get a motion to make that change to the agenda? Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Another thing that I wanted to just point out before we do get started is that councilperson Stephanie Borland is not here tonight. She has asked for continued thoughts and prayers for her husband who had a medical emergency recently. She really wanted to be here, but he's unable to be here. So continued thoughts and prayers to the Borland family, Borland Cohen family. All right, we will go ahead and get started with a presentation by our police department regarding our protocol in an active shooter situation. So, Chief.
It is disappointing that our counselor Borland couldn't be here because she was kind of the drive behind this presentation. The way I imagine this going is I'm just going to make a couple statements about some general protocols and perhaps open it up for any questions that the council may have. Obviously, I would be remiss to stand up and talk about specific tactics and methods that we would use that I would not make public to everybody. So these are just some general protocols. One of the concerns that came up or one of the questions that came up was, how Elon, the town of Elon Police Department would respond. We have the university here in town, but right outside of our jurisdiction is Western Middle and Western High. And I think it's important to know, for you all to know, that regardless of jurisdiction, pretty much anywhere in Alamance County, we're all going. Whoever is working that day, whether it's Burlington, we have Alamance County, Guilford County, Burlington, Gibsonville, the University Police, all those entities are really closely knitted, and their jurisdictions butt up and at times overlaps. So for instance, I know that Counselor Borland had a question specifically regarding Western High School. We are all going, whoever is on duty. The other thing that I think is important to also make an announcement, let you guys know just for informational purposes, is that we train, if not yearly, every 2 years. These are usually huge exercises. And it's really hard to get the resources to do them every year, but we try to do some sort of practical exercises. If we get an alarm call or we check a building door at Elon Community Church and it's open, we take that opportunity to sharpen those skills and hone those abilities to clear hallways and clear buildings, because very possible that could happen there. We have a tendency to think of school shootings, but not. It could be a business, it could be a church. We see faith-based communities targeted more predominantly here lately than I can recall in recent past. And we train for one officer response. If I am coming back from lunch and a call comes out at Elon Elementary and I'm there, I'm going alone. I'm not stacking up, I'm not waiting. We train not to stage. Again, every time we have one of these training exercises, we practice one person, one officer response. We know the danger going in, and we're just trained to do it. It was a bold move in 2012 when Chief Parker was our chief. We didn't have long rifles. We didn't have long guns. We had shotguns. He had a tactical background. He was a SRT or Special Response Team SWAT officer with the SBI. And he saw the importance of some of the cases he went out on and some of the incidents he was involved in, he saw the importance of bringing those in. So our officers do have rifles. We train, we qualify every year. They're extremely precise. They're extremely useful tool. We pray we never have to use them. But when you have a situation where folks are going into business settings, faith-based communities, they're going into schools and they are armed with a rifle, you don't want to be the officer with a pistol. Your odds are stacked against you. So just so you know, all the officers in town are going to go. There is what we call incident command. The highest ranking officer on scene, again, the first officer is going to go in. Second, third, we're all going to kind of go in. At some point, the highest ranking is going to set up a command post. That person is relieved when the next highest in command shows up, or those folks that have more expert training in that particular field. And, we're going to be working with the fire department, setting up staging, triage, media coverage, having where the media can be. We're going to have areas for parents, loved ones to come in and wait out the storm, so to speak. So we're gonna utilize NIMS, which is our National Incident Management. It's not going to be a situation where you're going to have all these executive level chiefs and sheriffs fighting over whose jurisdiction it is. It's all of ours. That's what the command post is there for. We set up the highest ranking officials there. We're making decisions for all our folks. We're implementing all the resources. We're pooling our assets together so that we can win. And that is, in a nutshell, I think there's some confusion as far as, again, that's all. If it's at the university, we're all coming. So jurisdiction doesn't really, we don't have boundaries when that happens. First and foremost, it's the preservation of life. And that's what our focus is going to be on. So, those scenes are chaotic. Not having had been in any, thank goodness, but even the training is chaotic. And I know when things happen, it is going to be frightening for everybody, but we're going to do the best we can to make sure the information gets out the best we can. So, and I don't know if I covered all the questions or answered what you guys, any curiosity that you have. So I guess I'll open it up to see if there's anything you'd like for me to expand on.
You answered my question right away. So
Okay.
that was about the where's, who's in charge kind of thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When you do your training, where do you typically?
We've done it in a multitude of places. There's a plant on Mineola in Gibsonville. We've used that. Elon Elementary, the old Elon Elementary. We've utilized many years ago, Elon University, ACC. It's who will allow us, right? It's getting access to the facilities. Not everybody wants us in there. Not everybody is inviting. So we take advantage of any kind of opportunities that we have. There's also an old building on Ray Street in Burlington that we've used before. So it just depends. The bigger the better, but we make use of whatever we have.
One question I had, it probably goes without saying, but the cooperation from the school systems, principals, those folks who are in charge at the school, how active are they involved at this training to know what kind of response you plan to be able to provide, how they need to handle it based on their instructions?
So we did a kind of a train the trainer with Elon Elementary in the past. And we had a rapid deployment instructor on staff, and he went in and basically had a 3-day training session. This is our protocols. This is what we're going to do. This is what we need you to do. So he went through and kind of explained that we haven't done that since they've moved. And that's definitely on our agenda. Of course, everything's fine until it's not. So it makes everything resurface. And being that we've got a new school, and COVID kind of impacted that as well when they're not actively in session. But it's brought back to light that, you know, we need to go back and do some of these drills there. We need to get the principal involved and we need to readdress the training because like our staff changes, their staff changes. So we've definitely got that on our agenda to go in and do some more in-person training. We'll have to, again, rely on outside agencies to come in. We no longer have that rapid deployment instructor with us and you have to be certified.
Just a general statement. I think it's sad that we're having to, this is an issue that is forefront nowadays. And when I was a kid, this would have been like almost, really, you're trying to almost scare people. Nowadays, it's just frightening what we're seeing there. And, I appreciate you coming to us and kind of letting us know the high level of what you guys are doing and being prepared for that. And it's comforting to know that everybody, which already kind of knew that everybody kind of comes together. There are no boundaries when there's a situation like that, which makes perfect sense. So I appreciate your readiness and I hope it's in vain, quite frankly. But,
So do we. You know.
you know, we don't take anything for granted nowadays, that's for sure.
Well, and I will also, you may or may not know, but we have right now one, we had two, and we have that vacancy, but we do have members on regional SRT teams. So they have that tactical training. And another thing, just as an open statement, is that there's some great resources online for business owners within the community. If any of you are business owners and you're interested, please email me. There's things that FEMA puts out on how to, if you work somewhere or if you own your business, steps that readiness, preparedness that you can do, and your employees can actually get a certificate of completion. Just so this isn't news to you all. This isn't news to your company. They know what is expected. They know what they should be doing. You know, they say run, hide, fight. But there's a whole list of trainings that you can attend online, virtually, and it's just for informational purposes. But I'm happy to share that with anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, moving on to our public comment section. This is the opportunity for the public to speak on any non-agenda item for up to 3 minutes. Agenda items will be discussed at its appropriate time or during the public hearing. Public hearing items can only be discussed during the public hearing. If you wish to speak, please stand up, sign in, state your name and address for the minutes, and we will now open the public comment section. Do we have anyone wishing to speak online? Okay, we'll close the public comment section. Moving on to ordinances and resolutions, we will start with letter A, rezoning case 2022-02 Park Northwest. And I believe that our town planner is going to give a short presentation on updates.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. So I guess it was earlier today, you received some, actually 4 revised conditions that were originally included in your packet for this case, and 1 new one. And so I just wanted to briefly go over them with you. They're in the presentation. There they are on the screen in front of you. As I stated, I won't go through all of them. Some of them are actually not even changing, but they were included today in an email which was forwarded on to you. So the first one, and I tried to include in red what existing condition they were modifying. And the first one is a slight modification to condition number 20 regarding access to the Cable Square neighborhood via the existing Stub Street, Old Town Drive. Again, they're still stating that it shall be barricaded to prevent construction traffic from Park Northwest until such time as the new streets are approved for warranty. Signage will be placed stating no construction traffic allowed, and the new portion is that no speed humps are now being proposed on that connecting street. The
Would
second,
you repeat that one more time?
there will be no speed bumps on the Old Town. That is the change to condition number 20.
Okay, thank
They're
you.
removing the speed bumps tables. The second one up there is a modification to condition number 24. Access to the Cable Square neighborhood via the existing street stub Ralston Drive shall be limited to a pedestrian sidewalk connection and utility easement for the purpose of public utility connection. I think there was some discussion at either the previous meeting or the meeting prior about removing that street connection. There were some concerns from the neighboring subdivision. We did talk to the fire chief and the fire marshal, and they were fine with that as long as the street connection on Old Town remains, so they could have access into the adjacent neighborhood. So that condition was modified under number 24. Number 3 was another modification that the developer will provide a 5-foot concrete sidewalk pedestrian connection between the Park Northwest development and Elon University property leading downtown on either the western or the eastern side of Williamson Avenue along the frontage of the Cable Murray property in accordance with the attached exhibit. The exhibit is the next slide. And the project shall be subject to review and of course approval by DOT. And again, I'll go into that one a little bit greater detail when I get to that next slide. The next 3 on the screen in front of you were conditions that were previously changed. They were already included in your packets. That was dated June the 30th. So I won't go through them. It's really just the 2.5 stories, limitation in height. The building at the intersection would be 3 stories above grade. And then that other one is making sure that there's a 25 minimum foot setback from the adjacent property. Again, that language stayed exactly the same. And then the last one, this is a new condition. Well, they presented it to you at the last meeting, but it's new as we have it typed up on the screen and in the conditions, is that each single family detached and attached lot shall provide a minimum of 18 linear feet of parking space between the garage door and the public sidewalk for front entry homes or the alley pavement for the rear loaded homes. So again, there was some concerns about cars blocking the sidewalks, blocking the alleys. So they've added that condition to ensure that there's enough length there to park a car without encroaching into the alley or blocking the sidewalk for the pedestrians. Next. So this is option A, and this is, again, was referenced in one of the conditions I went over. That was the,
Lori, can I stop you a second before you go into this? One of the things I recall we talked about is the side setback being increased from 3.
yes, on lots greater than 50 feet in width.
Yeah. Was that?
It's in the development standards already.
Yes, it's already in the table, and I'll touch on that in just a second, but they had already addressed that. You went forward one too many. Can we go back?
Back.
Oh, she is. Okay, sorry. So on the screen here, option A, that was originally presented to you with the developer constructing the sidewalk along the western side of Williamson Avenue and then having a mid-block crossing. And then they just presented us, next slide, with option B, which would have the crossing on the north side of University, and then cross over University coming down the eastern side of Williamson Avenue, all the way down to where Zach Walker Place intersects. So they've now given us an option A and a B, so western side or eastern side. Next slide. So this is the development standards table, which is contained in the master plan. I'd gotten a recent request to have that updated. And in the interest of time, the applicant was not able to provide the updated table. I would like to point out, though, that there are 2 updates. One of them are already done to the table. And that was exactly what you brought up about the side yard setback on lots greater than 50 feet. It's really hard to see on that screen, but it is up there, that you have a 3-foot side yard setback on lots 50 foot and less. And then you have that 5-yard setback, 5-foot side yard setback on lots 50 feet wide greater, which would increase that side yard setback to 10. So that's already in the table.
Are you able to zoom in so that the audience can at least see that?
It looks like he's got a handout. Yes. I don't know, can you zoom in?
Show what she's doing.
If you X out of the slideshow view and go to the standard view, you can zoom in.
It was better.
And so I take that back. So the developer was able to revise the chart. So this is going to look a little bit different than what's on the screen. Yes, so you still have the side yard setback at 5 and 3. That's not being changed. That's what they added one meeting or 2 meetings ago. But what they weren't able to get in and add was that condition about the length of the driveways, so the cars do not encroach into the sidewalks and the alleys. So if you can see on the highlighted sheet that was passed out to you, they did change the 5-foot and 10-foot previous setbacks, and they increased them to 18 in the highlighted yellow areas. So that would definitely address that. What I did want to add, though, is that the conditions that are being presented to you, if the board decide to go forward with a vote tonight, just to make sure to include in it that it reflects all of the proper conditions along with the revised development standards table and the master plan. And so we can make sure that they're one cohesive body. Like I said, because you had some moving parts throughout this process, we've kept a good record of all the changes, but that way we can make sure that they all match at the end. And that was really all that I had, except for if you could just jump really quick 2 slides forward, if you can get back to the slides. And that is your statement of reasonableness and consistency, so that if you do decide to vote on this project tonight, I gave you an example of how the proposed plan meets the comprehensive land use goals of the town. And that is an example statement of reasonableness and consistency. And by all means, if you want to use it, you don't have to repeat it. You can just refer to the one on the screen and we can capture that in the minutes. And if you have any questions of me, I will be happy to answer them.
Questions?
Question I have is, obviously you inherited this. And you've had now some time to probably go, be spending lots of time with it now, obviously.
Yes.
So this is something that in your mind is consistent with what you would have done if you had been here from the beginning.
Yes, my background, before I came from county planning, I worked in 2 suburban towns outside of Charlotte, in Huntersville and Waxhaw, and both of them had T&D ordinances and overlays. And so I am very familiar with this type of project being a mixed use project. And how the first one that comes through is a little bit intimidating for towns because it's a brand new project, especially when you're used to the conventional larger lot, single family subdivision. But yes, the zoning that's already on the property was already zoned for it. The reason that they went the conditional district overlay was they asked for some waivers and some modifications. But when I look at the existing zoning, when I look at the comprehensive land use plan, and it calls for that intensive type of development, absolutely. I don't think I would have changed the thing on the staff report, and I would have recommended in favor of the project.
Other questions? One thing that Randy had asked me, and you all know I come with all my notes and paraphernalia up here, was the change in the number of homes with the current zoning versus the conditional zoning. And so what I did was I took my child's scissors and I cut. So I knew you were gonna get up. I just knew it. And I know that this is hard to see for everyone with all my notes especially. So this is the current zoning. This is the requested zoning. So in the current zoning, you can put 275 single-family homes. That is allowed on that property currently with the current zoning, so without any changes whatsoever. Then in the orange is where other things are allowed. So that is the village center. So currently allowed in that zoning is congregate housing, single-family homes, daycare, gas station, commercial and office, transit shelters, live and work units, bed and breakfast. But then the overlay, which it already has, so this is not a change to it. The overlay allows for commercial except for warehouse, including apartments, as long as they are above commercial. So I just want for everyone to understand that the current zoning allows already some of the things that a lot of individuals have an issue with. So I just want to be clear on that because we continue to get questions about that, and it's already zoned to allow that. So currently on the zoning, you put 275 and they can get probably about 150 apartments based on the size. And so what I did was I took this plan and I cut out the buildings and I put them on this plan to show you that they can still get 2 of the large buildings without the 25-foot setback to Mrs. Hall's property. So that's one of the conditions. So without a conditional zoning approval, Mrs. Hall is right, Patty Hall, right? They can come right up to your property line without that 25-foot buffer. They can put that building there without us making a single change today. So I want to make sure that everyone understands where we are right now. Okay, so that's current zoning, that's what can go there. 275 homes, 150 apartments already over commercial. That's already there. With the change to this, there will be maximum of 200 single-family homes. I counted on the current plan, that's what I just set up here and did. There's 159. So 159 single-family homes. You all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I tallied every one of them. So 159 versus 275, and they're asking for approval of up to 200 apartments. I don't know if you'll get 200 in those 3 buildings, but I just want for everyone to understand, because I know that the majority of people in this room, no matter what happens today, some people are going to be disappointed and some people are going to be happy. But this is the reality of where we are. And I just want to make that really clear. So what we get from a conditional zoning versus this, some of the issues that were brought to us during this process is these homes are going to lower the value of my home. Conditional zoning is going to make sure that does not happen. You are getting a higher quality home in that neighborhood next door versus what was referred to as a tract home. That was the words from our public hearing. So I want to reiterate that in the current zoning, these things are already allowed. And we don't have the ability to say no to everything that's already here. We don't have that ability. What we can say no to is tract housing. What we can say no to is certain design elements, but only through a conditional zoning process. Without a conditional zoning process, they can put up any kind of homes they want without a single design requirement. That's the law. That is the way that our legislature limits small government. Is that we cannot make those requirements without a conditional zoning. I just want to make that crystal clear because I can tell you all, I have spent hours and hours and hours on this. And I just want it to be crystal clear what is currently allowed versus what can be allowed in the new zoning. Did I misspeak on any?
No, you're absolutely correct. In fact, my first day here, I was asking Carrie to educate me as to why they were proceeding with the conditional rezoning and why they were not developing the property as it currently was. Because as you stated, the uses were already allowed. They already had the T&D overlay. So I had to go, why are they going through the process? With some of the modifications that they've asked, they've had to go through the conditional rezoning process, but in turn, it allows you to have more aesthetic controls, because you're right, back in 2016, 17, the state took that control away from local jurisdictions for single family and two family homes, that you cannot control them aesthetically like you used to be able to. But you can through conditional rezoning, and you can ask for these conditions and they can agree to them. You come to that mutual agreement and understanding through this process. So no, everything you stated was correct.
The thing to add is that some of the uses you referred to, they've taken out of the
Yes.
gas stations. I think they took that out of the use list, so it could go in today. Under the proposal, it would not be allowed to go in.
Other questions for Lori? Any other general questions?
I'll be back there.
Any comments? I guess we have to take a motion before we. We'll have a motion.
Motion.
And you're voting to approve. We have to do the statement of reasonableness and consistency separate.
You can include it in the same motion as long as you reference it as part of your motion, that it meets the statement of reasonableness and consistency. And you could say that staff prepared, and we'll reference that in the minutes, approving documents. But yes, you can combine it into all one nice long motion. Unless you'd rather vote separately. Either way.
What is your motion? One motion?
One motion.
So I have one motion to approve the plan, as well as the statement of reasonableness and consistency as up on the screen and provided by our staff. Do I have a second?
And you want to include the conditions.
Oh, and contingent on the revised list of conditions being incorporated into the master site plan and development standards table.
And the table that was handed out tonight.
That's development standards table. Yes.
Yes.
Do I have a second to Mark's motion? Second, all in favor, say aye.
You want to comment on it first?
Oh, comment, sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Mayor eloquently shared. I think this is something we have had on our books for a while with the LDO. The Village Center is something we've talked about for years, is something we think could be an asset to our town. And as she said, and Mr. Beasley can attest as well, some of these things can be done now, just like the work living over retail. That could happen now without even coming to us as a board. This has been approved by our LDO. The housing I think what this has done is given us a say-so in the type of single-family housing that you know there, as you said. The conditions, actually, just the driveway. You know, I didn't realize that we could have driveways that are 10 foot that people had to park on sidewalks because they couldn't get into their full driveway. That's something that we currently would allow them to have a 10-foot driveway. That's wrong, because if you're someone who's disabled or you have children, you can't use the sidewalk. What good are they? They're no use to anybody. So they don't really create a pedestrian-friendly community. I think that's a positive thing. I think that you know, there are going to be things here that none of us like. I think we've all talked about the density. I want to live in that, no, but I think it's going to affect the property values around there. I think they're going to be more positive. I really do. I think compared to what could go there, what the property owner could have decided to do with that. That solution that I think we can hope for.
Comments?
I could comment. I've been on the board now 15 years, or council now, I guess. And out of that 15 years, I would say this particular issue has probably been the one that we focused in on the most to really make sure we get it right. Because we do value very much the input of the citizens. The only reason that I'm in here this long is for the citizens. And it's never an easy job to make a decision like that, because you're always going to have people that obviously disagree. And I think the development team has done a really good job in listening to what you guys had to say, listening to our concerns, and coming up with a really good plan. You know, as far as the values are concerned, I'm not an appraiser, but I've been in the financial services industry for 40 years, literally. And I know enough to know that your values are going to be affected upward and not downward. Now, if it was a shoddy development coming in, I would say something different. I have enough background and knowledge to know that that's not going to happen here. Kind of like Monty, but I personally want to live there, not necessarily, but it does give us options for our citizens in Elon, different options at different price points, to be honest with you. And right now, with the market the way it is, there's not many housing options. And I think Stephanie Boland mentioned about the staff at Elon. A lot of folks aren't able to live in Elon that are staff there because they can't afford to live. This would present another option. I know one of the concerns has been, you know, students with the departments and that type of thing. I mean, as you guys have heard that have been here, we can't really legally do anything about that. But I think the homeowners association will do all it can to make sure this is done the proper way. Again, I put a lot of thought into this. This wasn't a hasty decision. And I think we're making the right decision. I'm comfortable.
Change is always scary, different. All your letters, and emails, and comments, it didn't go unheard. With conditional zoning, it allows us to have this conversation as public representatives, as developers, and as the public. And if we look at this list from where it first started with these conditions, we can all pick out things that changed, that listened to you guys with your input. I've met with citizens to go over this, talk with staff about this. And it's moving forward. It was going to get developed one way or another. Conditional zoning allows us and you guys to have a hand in it. So we could have a developer come in here and say, we're doing this, and Ralston Drive is going to be butted up. We're having two roads coming straight through. And we're going to be back at the issue with traffic and public and density. And we also are a small town, right? We are currently a town that is based off of sales tax, right? So that's scary. Just think if it takes a turn for the worst, you know, we're not gonna be getting any income as a town. So adding to our property value, adding a destination point for people is something that the town of Elon needs. And I think this is probably one of the best moves we can do. We've negotiated and talked and made sure that this fits Elon. We constantly hear we want to keep that feel of Elon. We have a university, no longer Elon College. We have a university that is constantly growing. And there comes a point where we need to lean into what we are. And so the more students they bring in, where are we going to put them, right? Now they're starting to come into my neighborhood, your neighborhood. I think this opens up a lot of opportunities for Elon as a town to move forward. I appreciate you, the developers, and working with us and the patience-ness, talking to the residents, talking to our staff, and responding to our emails.
Being one of the newer ones on the council, it's been a learning experience for me in the sense that when we have a developer come forward, the question is, why should we be upset? Because we already know that we had opened up the possibility of something like this. In other words, we have zoning set before us with a plan. And so the question for me has come up through this process. Now, as we're getting ready to pass that new LMO, we need to have serious conversations so that we can stand behind this, because we have to, yeah, we're elected, but I don't think I'm elected here to say no to a developer or to someone who's coming in who in good faith sees that there is an opportunity there that we already presented to them. And so that's where I have that problem. Here's where my rub comes. And that is concept to reality. We're at the concept stage now. Is this going to turn into a reality? Unlike you, I would live in this development. This development says something to me. One of the things I've been concerned about, one of the reasons that I ran and wanted to be a part of this community leadership, was because it is time for us to think about being more green and about being more environmentally responsible. And everything that I have read about this kind of development leads to the potential for a much more environmentally safe setting. It is scary because we can't see it yet because we haven't seen it. That's the reluctant part of me that's here. But the fact is that if I'm in a house and I can walk to a restaurant, or I can walk to a retail store and have a park nearby, a small park for my children or for my grandchildren, and I can pretty much stay in my area, I can get on a bike and move around and have access to things. To me, I already live in a town. I already live in Hinton Place. So I live in a place that's close, that the houses are closer together. And I've had no problem at all with that. In fact, I like it. I like it a lot, actually. So I have a little different feel than a couple, but I still carry some reluctance because I'm just afraid that I just hope that through this process that it is really seen through and that it really can. Will it sell like we think it's going to sell? Will it provide the kinds of growth that we really want to have? And throughout the process, if there's something that changes, are we going to be abandoned? You know, can we abandon this? And that's another fear that I have. So I'm taking all of that here together within my thinking process here. So I kind of walked in here with, you know, the uncertainty of what I was going to say and do. So I really have appreciated your comments. I can tell you quite honestly, I've appreciated what I've seen has been a real good give and take process with this conditional zoning. And I think that we're not done. I think there's still going to be more to come when some of these things come through, when we start to get the reality of the project coming through. So that's where I'm at right now.
Question, the recent passing at the legislative level now limits our ability to even have these sorts of conversations going forward. Is that correct? With planning, like it all has to be quasi judicial only by experts?
This is
Not this, but the next step.
correct. The next step, the actual project reviews. Again, the state in its wisdom has decided that local planning boards should have a smaller role in the development review process. Elected officials should have a greater role, but there's not a lot of flexibility. And when somebody comes in with a project that complies with the zoning and complies with our development standards, you have to hold a hearing, meets the standards, you're obligated to approve it. So once it leaves this conditional zoning process, you don't have those conversations anymore. You can't have the negotiations that you've been able to do. It's a pretty straightforward standard, you get your approvals.
So let's say that this doesn't pass. We have essentially two votes right now. Let's say it doesn't pass. We can no longer, let's say a different developer says, I'm gonna develop exactly as it's currently zoned. We can't even take comments from the public at that point because they would have to be expert opinions.
Under the rules of a quasi judicial hearing, which is what you're talking about, testimony has to be fact-based. So you wouldn't be allowed to take a comment, somebody mentioned earlier, this is gonna lower my property values. That is not a comment you could accept. You could accept a comment from an appraiser who says, this is what I projected to do to property values up or down. That's, as they call it, competent testimony, factual testimony. We don't want the extra traffic. That's not a comment that you'd be allowed to take. You can take traffic engineer testimony about how much traffic will be generated and compare that to our standards. If it exceeds our standards, you could vote no. If it was in compliance, you could vote yes. You'd have to vote yes.
One question I had, Rich, maybe you can answer this, maybe Lori can. Obviously, if this were voted yes, and if the developer didn't start right away, 2 years down the road, still haven't started, is there a time limit on that condition expiration?
2 years.
2 years?
2 years.
It doesn't automatically expire, so the conditional zoning is still placed on the property. But if a new developer were to come around, then they would have to go through that process again because they have very specific zoning applied to that property. Or if the developer decided, hey, we hit a bit of a recession, now we want to start back up in 5 years, he would essentially go back through this process again.
So 2-year life on the
Yes, to start construction.
start.
So ask my question as hopefully an action for residents across the state to take is that local governments are continuously restricted by our state legislature and what we can and cannot do. We would love to be able to say, this is what the neighborhood has to look like. This is what it has to have in it. We don't have that option without conditional zoning. So if those are things that residents of this state want for local governments to be able to do, please write a letter to your legislature because they continue to limit our ability to do what, in my opinion, is the job of local government. And it gets worse every year. So please, if that's important to you, like it is to me, I would ask that you continue to contact your state legislatures about these types of things. Because it continues and we have less and less control over what we can and cannot do. Just like when this plan comes to us in a few weeks, in a month, whatever, we can't even, we aren't gonna be able to hear from our public about it. If it meets these standards, it's done. And that's, we actually can't take any questions because we're not in the public hearing, but I really want everyone to just understand what position we are constantly in when our rights as a local government continue to be taken away. Ready to vote. A motion, I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Motion carries. Four. I don't vote unless there's a tie. Thank you all very much. I know that some of you are likely disappointed. But we will continue to press forward and absolutely hope for the best. And hopefully in a few years, we can all sit down and have a meal or shop together at the new shops up there. And, you know, that's really where we are is I truly believe that the developer and his team and my conversations with them, they want to do right by our town. There was some give and take. They took a lot of your comments and made them into conditions, not everything, of course. But I think that that says a lot about them wanting to be here, them being here for what, 5 meetings now. So, and all of you. So we appreciate that. Thank you very much. If you wish to stay, please stay. We only have a few more items to cover. If you wish to go, you're welcome to leave as well. Jill, do you want to go ahead and come up to the front while we have some transition? Watch that cord there.
I'll see y'all later.
Thank you for being here.
All of you.
All right, letter B, Downtown Social District Ordinance number 22-860.
Someone shut the door, it's probably there.
I think they're all going out.
Maybe there's one chatter.
Good evening, everybody. Sharp, Town Council, I love the sound of that. I'm excited to come back to you tonight to discuss the social district. Just for the benefit, I know at least the media had asked, what is a social district? And I didn't really, wasn't going to cover that, but I'll just briefly cover that so you can get that in your notes. Social district is a designated area in which you allow the consumption of alcohol to be in outdoor dining areas, which we've had the pleasure of having. The state allowed us to do this during COVID. Our 1, 2, 3 designated dining areas. We also had the benefit of being able to have some alcoholic beverages in those areas. And I think for the most part, everybody in our town has enjoyed having that flexibility. That flexibility will be changing on August 15th, meaning that restaurants would only be allowed to serve alcohol in their restaurant and in their designated patios that are permitted for that. That's part of what sparked us to want to do this social district, to be able to allow the alcohol in those current areas, as well as being able to walk around the block, go into some other stores with an alcoholic beverage. So that's the motivation behind it. So at our last meeting, which was on June 27th, I presented the concept. And after that meeting, I was to go back and speak with university officials, downtown business owners, and the Elon Police Department, get their feedback about the boundaries of the district and just the concept itself. Diane, would you bring up that the map? That would be great. So one of the things we talked about, and I think it was in your packet, it'd be easier to see it on the screen, was the designated area into which the social district would be. And it's basically the blocks around the smaller portion of our downtown, which is North Holt to West Lebanon, to North Williamson, to West College. As you can see there. Now the little bump out spot you see at the top, that is part of the church property, the Elon Church property. At the time of this presentation, we weren't completely sure if that would be included or not. You know, that is private property. We enjoy the benefit of the church allowing us to use it for various things like our music to dine to and all kinds of other activities. This is kind of a different animal, so to speak. So Rich Rodner went to their board meeting on Sunday to answer questions that they had about what it meant for them, what the liability was, and kind of what we were trying to accomplish. So I'm going to ask Rich just to say a little bit about what happened at that meeting, if you don't mind.
Sure. We had a good conversation, and I explained that, you know, what we are looking at is making an allowance for what's been happening for the last 2.5 years. And that whether whether it had been, you know, people have used their property for this over that period of time on an informal basis. Allowing a portion of that side yard to the church to be included would allow what's been going on to continue. We talked about liability issues, and they were going to be in touch with their legal counsel and insurance folks to understand what liability may accrue to the church or not. We talked about you know, where that boundary line actually is or would be. What is proposed, and I don't know the dimensions offhand, but it's probably 70, 80 feet from the West College sidewalk into that church property. So partway down that immediate parking area on the left, and then out to the North Williamson sidewalk. We agreed that we would actually figure out what those dimensions are. We talked about how they'd be demarcated in terms of signage, where that, you know, where that would go. I showed them the different sign images that Jill's put together. They did ask to have an agreement with the town, which if we move this forward, then we would work with our attorney to draft that agreement. Church formally allowing us to include it in our social district, and clarifying that should the church decide at some point to change its mind, that they notify us, and that, you know, we'll do what we need to do to change our ordinance, because obviously we don't want to include their land if they don't want it included any longer. Am I leaving anything out?
Not really. I believe that there was a little bit of a concern if the church was doing an activity on the lawn and it was within the hours of the social district operations, but we still have the right to be on our own property to be able to do that and not have to worry about people wanting to come over there and sit or something like that. I think we kind of figured that you said as a whole, you're probably not going to see a lot of drinking going on at 10 o'clock or 10:30 on Sunday morning and those kinds of things.
We, you know, in terms of events, we would certainly work, we wouldn't have events scheduled when you're gonna have that scheduled that would utilize that. There will be seating currently under the tent, in the future on the plaza. I think at that time of day, that would probably suffice. We could certainly inquire with our attorney if there's language that would allow you close your parking on Thursdays.
Yes.
For the farmer's market. If you have an event out there on a specific day, we make allowances somehow to have that closed off, I guess would be my point. And we can include that with our questions to the attorney if this moves forward.
Another good example would be on like coming in September, we're gonna have our dog day mixer. And we don't want to have alcohol for the students when it's happening there. Dogs can drink, but not. But we usually have hot dogs and ice cream, that kind of stuff out there, and all the students are out there and everything, so.
That would be a quick, how would we do that?
How do we do that?
We can figure that out with our attorney.
It's only a couple, good, that's only like a couple hours here and there, so it's never gonna be significant.
Thank you, Rich. So I did in fact do what was requested. I met with the university, I met with John Dooley. And I know that he was really concerned prior to our meeting about what this meant. I mean, obviously, we live in a college town and we don't want a free for all day, all night party. But, and from the town that he had come from, they had a downtown situation where it was basically that. So I think after he learned about the restrictions that, the same rules apply, 2 drinks within an hour, you probably know it better than me, on what the regulations are. He felt extremely comfortable, even so much so that he said, because I had suggested that 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. So basically lunchtime. He said, "No, I think we should start it earlier because, lunchtime." And I mean, he was really positive about it. And sometimes we have these games, they might want to come early and have a, brunch, an early lunch. So I was really pleased with how positive that was. And I think he really understands with the signage and the restrictions that it is going to be a safe environment. I've also had lengthy conversations with our chief of police, and she's here tonight if you have any questions of her. I also met with the merchants, our Merchants Association. They have some very specific questions about liability for them. So I'm going to ask Kelly to come to our next meeting. That's kind of just a little side note. They just want to know what their liability is once that person walks out the door with the social district cup and some of those other things that Kelly probably be very easy to answer those. So it was all really positive. I think all of us just really want the ability to have some flexibility. I know I met yesterday with Adrian, what's his last name? Who's Adrian with the Carpenter? Thank you. And he mentioned something about the tap house. Tell me if I'm wrong, trying to get that revived and something to happen at the tap house. Are you aware of that, Jeff? So my thought being that is on the back side. So if they get that back open, it would play right into the back side of that being in that social district. I don't even know if it's open at all now, but there was some
They're
talk.
open for events.
Yeah, but I think they're talking about something a little bit bigger than that. So that would be support them on that backside as well. So I want to open it up for any questions you have of me, or like I said, luckily Jeff Stein's here from the university and Kelly's here. If you have any more questions based on our last conversation, Diane can put up some signs I can show you before we take questions. Some signage that I've been working on. So we talked about, obviously, at the entrances and exits, we need signs. So here's one. So that is actually like a sticker for the grounds. So if you scroll up, so you would like literally look down on the sidewalk and say, now we're entering and now you're exiting. I've begged and borrowed some of these ideas from other towns that have done social districts.
Can we have our marketing people to do them similar to what we did with the social distancing stickers?
I don't know who did those.
Who's the marketing firm, Diane?
Yeah, that'd be great.
North Star?
Yes.
Yeah, they do it. Yeah, to make
Yeah.
it be.
So
Yeah.
they did like custom social distancing markers and, it's all like
That'd be
according to the branding and.
Yes, yeah. These are just sample ideas. So this is like, you have to have something on the cup. So that's an idea social to be, if you scroll up a little more, you have to have this on the cup. B21, drink responsibly. It has to be 12-point font. It's very, very specific. So when I talked to the merchants about it, they said, well, why don't we just put because you have to have their logo on a sticker at the top. And then one of the questions that came up was like, well, how do we know that they don't come back with that cup the next day and things like that? So Jill, who owns Beer Republic, said you put the sticker and you date it. So we've got some really good thoughts on there on how to do some control issues. And like I said, it's something else I want to talk to Kelly about. But these are just some ideas for signs, but that's a great idea to have it tie into what.
Yeah, because they can, you tell them exactly what you need and I'm sure it's gonna cost more, but I mean,
Yeah.
at least it'll be like.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So you have one that says designated area entering and exiting. We're thinking on the concrete and then also signs at the corners. And then on the church property,
Added poles.
we're gonna have to do something or put it on some of our existing poles. Some of the towns did it, most of them just put it on an existing pole. So I looked at some samples and I'd be happy to show you some of those. Some I liked, some I didn't. Some were really large. I liked the thought of the QR code. I think there's one more if you scroll down, Diane. That way you don't have all this information, or it might be a different, it might be a different one that had the QR code on it.
You have to scroll down.
Okay.
So
You had to sign 2.
some of them were just gigantic and had way too, nobody's gonna read all that. So I like the idea of the QR code. You click on that and then it'll show you the map and give you all the rules that they really want to know, every rule to what it is. So,
Yeah, I see that.
and I'd be, like I said, I'd be happy to send you some samples from other towns and you can say, oh, I like that, I don't like that.
And again, the other important thing is that this is beer and wine only. Is that correct? Or is
Yes.
this mixed drinks as well?
Beer and wine.
That's what I thought.
It has to be in the designated cup.
And the cups cannot leave the district. Is that
Correct.
Correct.
So if, the students are 2 blocks from down the road and one of Kelly's staff, police officers see them, I mean, it's kind of an obvious one then. A little easier actually to control than the, tumblers and things they hide it in now.
So
So
it's one drink per cup. So when they come back, they get a new cup.
they get a new cup. And I'm trying to remember what the ounces are.
16, I thought.
Was it 12 or 16? Yeah, I mean, I think it was 16.
I did have one question. I guess the question would be to Chief Blackwell. Prior to pandemic, before this was allowed, with this proposed, what additional pressure does it put on for law enforcement? If anything,
Make sure I understand, since COVID,
you know, like before COVID, obviously people didn't open carry, didn't drink around. So it was known and understood. When we did open up the outside dining and beverages, are you gonna see much of a change, you think?
honestly, I think when we opened the dining outside and allowed those to come in, we saw a lot less. Because I was kind of giggling when you said people don't walk and carry. Yeah, they do all the time. So it actually, I think it really kind of curbed what we saw, a lot of solo cups, flasks, or, tumblers and things like that. We actually saw a decrease because they were able to go across the street and sit out and enjoy it and go back. We haven't had any issues. We talked about assessing, what if this were to pass, obviously assessing any kind of strain that put on the police department, but talking to our staff, I don't anticipate things are going to change too much. It's almost like we programmed them to do this already.
I would hate to say that we had to become another security guard, to police the downtown area to make sure that was enforced.
It's hard to predict, but we've been doing it for 2 years. We haven't had any issues. We haven't had any enforcement encounters downtown. So, and again, we've seen folks coming from, day parties downtown to eat and enjoy the beverages and not carry their own cups. So we've actually seen a decrease in that downtown.
There's no danger at all, and I'm not sure who to ask, but I noticed, because there's those internal parking lots, but they don't really go into there, do they, with the drinks most of the time? I know that it's in the zone, but has that ever been a problem in the last few years?
We haven't encountered it. You talking about the center
There's a little-
parking lot?
yeah, a little
Stuff like
internal
that.
parking lot.
I don't anticipate that being an issue, and I think that's gonna come down to the brass tacks of honing in on where exactly we're going to allow those containers. If it's all within that entire block, it's just like anything else, we already drive through, we already do checks. We know that especially in the winter when it gets darker sooner, our officers are doing foot patrols and things like that. I don't think that's gonna be any different than what we already do.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is great. I would like to revamp some. I think your signs are lovely, but I would like to revamp our signs.
And you get the concept of what it will look like. Yeah.
And I don't see it being an issue. So we are in a college town, but being in with the restaurants downtown, college kids don't come in there and drink. It's just not a thing. That's not the clientele that is buying the drinks. You have a quarter of the population that's legally allowed to drink. And the only thing that we can see it doing different, right, is really somebody coming into McGurk's or this point and then taking it around to go to where our new plaza is going to be. Like they got done with their dinner and now they're wanting to go see the music That's really gonna be it. And allow Tangent and the Root and McGurk's to sell drinks to go across the street to that place. It's not like, we're not gonna see a free-for-all of people just drinking willy-nilly in our town. The cups that
downtown.
have to get, not downtown. The cups that have to be purchased, are you gonna supply the merchants with like who to order them from? Are they gonna order them through us?
So we had a discussion about that very thing, and Phil from Oak said he was actually willing to purchase the cups, have everybody pay him, and then they all put their logos and stickers on it and store them. He was willing to do that.
And is there a certain design the cup has to be?
No, other than it has to
Color.
say those sayings, must be 21, drink responsibly, and the font size is 12 point for that specific saying.
And it has to say, it has to have Town of Elon
Yeah,
district on it.
yeah, and their logo, which we talked about them using stickers for the logo, rather than getting all these cups printed for all of the restaurants.
I think this is something great for our town and to allow us having these two district or these two outside eateries is gonna, it really help the restaurants and the businesses. I think this is only gonna help secure that.
I just got back from the Main Street Conference, and this was a huge discussion. More and more towns are jumping on board, sharing information. So it's, I can't remember, Raleigh, I think it was Raleigh, one of my examples I was looking at. They actually are opening a second social district in the, they're so big. And it has to be, so it is definitely, we all kind of got used to it.
Because of this, having cups and can't take them out of the social district. Does that mean we need to have, I think we have like 2 trash cans across the street. Are we gonna have more trash cans?
Yes, we absolutely need more trash cans. In fact, just in general, the merchants are complaining there's not enough trash cans, and when you look, there really is not.
Yeah, that's something that this board has
We
mentioned
desperately,
on.
desperately need more trash cans.
And when I went to Oxford, Ohio, I actually took pictures of the blocks. And I mean, there are trash cans at multiple points mid-block. They're not just on the
No,
corners, they're on
they have to
every corner. I mean,
And that was a fear that came up, and we need to have them at least at the entrance and exits. But if you look over at the route, I mean, there's nothing on that strip. We need more trash cans.
yes,
They were complaining about constantly picking up students' trash and problem before this. So definitely be a problem after this.
And yes, when part of the regulation is that you cannot take your cup out of the district.
So they're gonna,
We talked about ideas of having containers at those exit points, if you will, so that it's not tossing them on the ground.
okay, this is a way off question. If there's gonna be a place for them to leave them, is there an opportunity for them to be a cup that's reusable?
it's not supposed to be reusable.
They're not supposed to take it with them.
Right.
I know, but I mean, hand it back and somebody rips that sticker off and then they wash them and then it's not as much waste.
Who's gonna do that? Who's gonna do that?
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think about, then we need recycle cans maybe. So basically, what I'm asking you to do is to schedule a public hearing, because it's an ordinance, and to allow us to move forward with the downtown social district. You do have an ordinance in your packet that I believe Diane had Emily look at. Did you see that prior to the meeting? There's an ordinance there with, and we're gonna have our town attorney look at that, because I borrowed the ordinance core codes and everything from other documents to make sure that those are all legitimate and are the numbers they're supposed to be.
Yeah, sorry. I was like, wait, it's not in here. It is in here.
Okay, good.
So this goes into effect August 15th, so obviously.
No,
Tom-
We can't get it together by
So we
then.
can't get it together. So what happens in the meantime? We shut down across the street, Rankin and, yes.
Regardless of whether we shut it down or not,
State does.
the state has a role in this as well. And those businesses that have licenses to sell beer and wine will go back to the way it used to be, that they didn't allow you to leave with a glass of beer. And it's gonna be incumbent on them to take that same tact as far as protecting their licenses.
And I actually sent them all the business owners an email today, because I think a lot of them have no idea.
Yeah, we
Just
won't-
to let
we
them
won't
know.
Jeopardize their license because of something.
The liability's back on them. If they choose to let somebody go out, then they know that they've chosen to do that, but.
So really, we'd be looking at putting together a public comment for the last, our meeting at the end. Wait, we're not gonna have that.
It won't be till
September.
September.
It'll actually be September.
September 13th. Our practice,
We vote on it at the same time.
our practice has been to hold a hearing and then at a subsequent meeting vote. There's no reason you can't vote the night of the hearing, particularly if there's no adverse comments. So, you know, it can certainly be set up for you to vote on the 13th. Then it's the production of signs and notices and obtaining the cups that would.
Another first music to dance to.
August 19th.
Do we need to have a special meeting?
What's our deadline on notice of public hearing?
2
notice,
weeks.
Diane?
You gotta have, no more than 25, no less than 10.
Dates. We could not have the hearing prior to the 19th. We'll have 10 days minimum.
But we also have to have the signage up and the map turned in at the state.
Okay,
There's other things. You cannot have it without all these things in place.
okay. So we probably need until September 13th anyway.
Well, again, if it's approved September 13th, that starts the theoretically, that starts the clock of us getting the signs ordered and getting the cups ordered and all that. Risk averse to doing all that prior to an approval.
I don't want to extend the meeting, but I mean, obviously, we've been here more than just this pandemic. And we had events out on the street out there. We had concerts and stuff and people were able to drink out there. So did we have to do a special permit for that?
Yeah. Special
So
event
could
permit.
we apply for a special permit for some of our events and things like that?
I thought they
Yes,
stopped
we
doing that.
can, But Jill, you really look into that, please, because part of it was, we got to the point where whatever restaurant or business that it was gonna be served from had to extend theirs out.
Yeah, it's not that simple.
Or the town can try to pull something off, which
Or we could have a nonprofit. Talked about the chamber doing events up in Reedsville. The chamber could do it. I mean, nonprofits could do it. I remember Kathleen talking about the inability to have multiple vendors present. Because it was a business's license, not
They had
a.
to sell their beer at the event, not.
Yeah, the restaurant.
Does it
won't
every
be-
Friday.
They won't be able to come out of the restaurant and go into the social district, no matter what. Yeah, it's not, you can't. It has to be a vendor at your special event.
We can check with Burlington and find out how they do it.
I make a motion that we set up for public comment in our next meeting.
I second that, I'm all for it.
Any other questions?
You would raise the issue of a special meeting. November.
November first weekend.
We could be up and running by then, right?
Perhaps we can get some designs ready and say, go as soon as we're. All ready to go. It's just a matter of. Yeah.
November 13th.
Are we all okay with that? Are you comfortable with that timeline? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. Approval of school resource officer memorandum of understanding with ABSS. I think
Thank you all.
Hey, buddy.
unless you want dinner.
We're doing this committee, you stay for the.
I think while I'm here.
All important.
Hey. So I think the council's aware of, but I'll give the background anyway. Obviously, with Uvalde United or Ignited, more concern about school safety. I attended a joint ABSS County Commissioner meeting several months back, and this was a topic of conversation among other tactics and strategies to keep our schools safe. And ABSS approached the county commissioners asking for more funding. We needed 14, or they needed 14 more officers, SROs throughout the county for every school to have one. In the past, generally, it's just been high school and middle school. Commissioners voted to approve that. So we have before you a memorandum of understanding with ABSS. They're asking the town to enter into this. It is a new position, not something we've had before. They are supporting a $70,000 grant paid to the town of Elon to support the hiring and benefits of an SRO. And I think included in your packet is that MOU. We did have our town attorney look at that. He did send over some recommendation for changes, for clarification in some of the language, giving us a little bit more control, stricter control over we have in that position. The ABSS has sent that back saying that their attorney and financial director or CFO have looked over our language and they're amenable to that. So we have put that before you today, and I'm prepared to answer questions if you have any regarding this. This would be a dedicated SRO, separate and apart from the budget that you all passed for us to hire someone in January. This would be a separate entity or a separate position.
This would be a new hire.
It would be a new hire.
Does that $70,000 grant cover it? Because isn't there benefits and stuff like that?
Again, I think it's gonna depend on the price point, the salary point of someone coming in. It does give us a lot of flexibility. Obviously, you don't want a green, unexperienced rookie working at a school district for school safety. But I talked with the town manager. We may have some gap in equipment. We have a car, so vehicle is not an issue. We do have uniforms, like some surplus uniforms. Again, it's going to depend on the stature and size of a hire. But at worst case scenario, at the average cost for salary, if we don't have equipment, we might be in it for $10,000, but that's a one-time expense. Maintaining and upkeep is just general operating costs. That would be a one-time cost.
Will they have ongoing training, any continuing education opportunities we'll have to pay for or anything like that?
It would just be the same it would be, I guess, brought into our operation budget. They are offering free SRO training. You have to get certified to have someone at the school. That is offered through the state, and they're offering it locally through one of the lieutenants at the sheriff's office is a certified instructor. But the regular training that we already implement, that we just kind of absorb in our regular routine operational budget.
So you don't see this as a big impact on our.
No, sir.
Couple of questions. Obviously, you'll have to have a backup. Obviously, if he's out, or he or she is out. But then, as far as like the summer or holiday times, that officer would go back into servicing in another capacity, filling in as other officers as well.
Yes, sir.
So you probably had to have at least one other person trained as well, fill that role from time to time, vacation time or sick leave or whatever, right?
Right, we'll probably have several administrative folks trained that we could plug in for contingency for vacation, sick time. It could be that maternity leave, who knows? But yes, we will have to have a contingency plan.
And the last question I had was, obviously, is it a year to year, or is it ongoing? The counties agreed to fund SROs, officers for all schools.
It was agreed as a sustainable increase in the ABSS ongoing budget.
Is there a standard as to what an SRO officer does? Look like?
I mean, there's training, there are certain rules, there's certain constitutional requirements and they still, they still operate as an agent of the school, but they're also an agent of law enforcement. So there are still some things they can't do, illegal searches, things like that. Just, there are some complications there, but all that is part of the initial training and the continued refreshers every year.
Would this be your employee?
It would be, yes.
We've already seen on TV of kindergartners being taken handcuffs by an officer. And I'm just trying to figure out, I understand the balancing from Uvalde to, I see that on the other side. I hope that they don't become a part of the discipline aspect.
No, it's more for safekeeping. In other words, if you have a child that comes in and complaining of child abuse at home, we would get involved in that. So there are parameters that are set. We've been doing SROing for 10 years through the SRO grant as a part-time. And before that, they didn't require SRO training. It was a packet of information that our officers had to read and sign off on and say, yeah, you're good to go. We're talking about more dedicated, specific training on what you legally can do, what you can't do. Our policies are still in place. I'm not sure of the video you're talking about, but it sounds like, if I'm so bold to say, poor training.
I would also like to see in the hiring process, if it's possible, before you hire for this position, go talk to Elon Elementary and their administrators and some of their teachers, and what kind of SRO do they proceed in their school? Like what does it look like to them? Right? Instead of us just plugging in an officer in uniform and saying, this is what it is now. Like, how do they see this as a resource officer and what they would like to see out of it?
So I think there's flexibility with us. And I understand where you're coming from. And I think there's a time and a place for that, definitely, for sure. We also have to think about officer safety. If someone is coming to do harm at that school and we have a plainclothes officer, and again, there's a time and a place. I have no vest on. Having resources and an office set up where they have access to a ballistic vest, because you don't want to take those unnecessary risks. But yes, I think the sheriff's office, they have polos and BDU pants, something like I'm wearing now.
I guess
More
I'm not
casual
into physical appearance, more over their roles of what they're supposed to do at the school, and really being part of that resource. Because you talk to different teachers at schools, and this one will just stand at the front door and sit in his car during the parking lot, and this one will do. Like, what does Elon Elementary benefit from having this resource of safety? Well, what is their role? Is it to just be a present in a bulletproof vest and have their gear on to persuade people to not come there? And I think, the people that work in the school and with the kids have a better understanding of what they would like to see from it with.
And I understand where you're coming from now. And I just remind you that we've had a working relationship with Elon Elementary for many years, and they very much enjoy our officers. Our officers, most of them understand their role, and it is a partnership as far as, and we've had to take a step back and I've worked SRO, and I've had to take a step back and explain to the vice principal or the principal, that's not something I do. We're not here to discipline. We're not here to use scare tactics, things like that. So again, I think it goes back to knowing your audience and knowing your community and your partners. I think I have a very good working relationship with the principal. And part of that is going to be, if this were to pass, having those conversations and making sure that we have everything set up. And absolutely, I think that kind of goes without saying, but I'm glad you brought it up, just knowing what the expectations are on both sides.
Yeah. When you look for if this does pass and you are just looking for to put an officer in the school, what kind of person are you looking for that's not already on staff? Is it different?
Honestly, I have several people on staff I'd love to plug in there. Yeah, I think it is. It's more of those folks that are more passionate about service, more passionate about impressions and being mentors. I think you have to have someone who is very good at de-escalation and talking. And someone who puts you at ease and is comfortable. You know those people when they meet them. Those are the kind of folks I'm looking for. It's not a tangible, I can put my finger on it, but someone who's passionate. That's why I say I have plenty of people I think would be great, but if they don't want to do it, they don't need to be there. So I think that's the important piece to
I
it.
appreciate that. And I think I already asked it, but I just want to make sure this is your employees and nobody else is going to tell this officer how they should be doing things, but.
Correct.
Okay.
I have
Yes.
really one very quick question, but school year, does that mean they only work a school year and when they're on, when the off?
They are implemented, they kind of revert back to being a police officer. Now, Rich and I have talked about it, keeping in that same line of tradition of making sure it's a right person in the right position. That may mean, I would love to have them go over and work with Burlington's Junior Police Academy for at-risk youth and be involved in those community outreach events that we hold during the summer. Or maybe working on projects that they can implement for the upcoming school year. Plugging in on patrol as needed, but I would prefer to keep them in kind of that community service COP role. Any other questions? Thank you all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna go back to letter C, under ordinances and resolutions, because I think it makes the most sense to discuss the budget amendment to cover funding this role right afterwards. So fiscal year 23 budget amendment number 001, ABSS School Resource Officer Grant. Not sure that you really need to give any more explanation other than what you did, but any other questions about that particular line item? It's a grant coming from ABSS into our budget. Wasn't originally on our original budget, so we do need to pass that in order to accept the funds.
So the budget amendment is to change our revenue by the 70,000 and change our expense account by 70,000 as well.
I make that motion.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, chief. All right, moving right along, letter B, Downtown Advisory Board appointments. Oh, sorry, Counselor Ray would like to move that line item to the bottom. That was a joke.
So we discussed this a few weeks ago when we had the Downtown Advisory Board. Just to recap, as a board that you appointed, it has a total of 7 seats. When I started 3 months ago, we had 3 of those seats filled, and COVID and a variety of other things with kind of things needed to be revamped. So we appointed 2 new board members your last meeting, and our current board has been very diligent about seeking and finding new board members. So I'm really happy that one of ours is here tonight, Mackenzie Brown. We're very happy. She's standing. Yeah, the whole crowd is gone now. So I'm sure you have seen it.
personal.
I'm glad to be here. I get
And the whole building exited before I got up here. So we have 2 new, and I'm very happy that we do applications. Jill, and I don't know if I say it, if it's Avalon or.
I think that's correct.
Is that right? And she owns Beer Republic, which is actually not in our downtown district. It's just beyond. But she is very committed to Elon. And I think one of the things we talked about at the board level is balance. And maybe not having every single person that's a downtown business owner, or every single person that's a resident, or every single person that's in a certain age group. So one of the things we've really tried to do is balance that out. So we're really happy she was interested. And the other is Phil Smith, the owner of the Oak House. Our downtown board has discussed it at length and given support and endorsed these two applicants. And I'm very pleased that if you all decide to approve that, our board will be full. So I wanted to open it up for discussion. Any comments anybody wants to make about the two applicants?
I'm always appreciative anytime somebody wants to volunteer, and I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
We need more people who see that need and want to step up and make a difference. So I appreciate you doing that.
Accept these board members and get this board working.
A second.
I'll second that.
Before we take a vote, I will just say that on Phil's application, he says that he will gladly trade this to be on the Downtown Advisory Board compared to the Elon LMO Revision Committee. That's denied. So-
You're gonna vote him in before you deny him that. That's just not nice.
He has to stay on vote.
Yeah, yeah,
LMO short term.
yes. Well, it was supposed to be short.
Hey, thanks for wanting to be a part of this. Lindsay. I think
Oh.
I've worked with you.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. Anything we can do, I'm for growth, I promise I am. I'm for new things. And so, I mean, being here as long as we have, I'm excited to. Honestly, my sister wanted to be on. I mean, like, we need more members, but I know we only have 7 seats right now. So, yeah. I'll make some things.
And I have one more question before we take the vote. So when the Downtown Advisory Board becomes its own entity, how will that work? Will the currently appointed individuals just go over into that and then that will all be handled outside of this board?
Right.
Okay.
You won't have to come to the town council. The board works independently. Basically, we'll have a clean slate. So then we have bylaws that are, we'll work with the town attorney to get, not the town attorney, but the attorney that was working on it before we got the town attorney to get that straightened out. But we will be independent. So that board will elect its own people. And of course, bringing and reporting, the town will remain the same. I mean, the biggest thing it gives you, not so much being independent in that way, it's the opportunity to get donations and grants. And that's huge, not only for downtown, but it's huge for the city and our town of Elon in general. So we wouldn't have to come to you. We would just go ahead and elect it. And I would probably come and report, oh, we've appointed these couple of people and this is who they are and that kind of thing.
We'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Oh, it's still you.
It's the real show.
Mackenzie, if you don't want to stay
No,
anymore.
I mean, I'm here.
Donation of art for downtown.
Yes, I am very pleased that shortly after I got here, I was contacted by the Alamance Art Council. I think I mentioned to you all at the last time we brought this up that Carrie Worthy had retired, and one of the things they wanted to do for him was have public art made and donated to the towns. And they really wanted to see it in downtowns if possible. So I was thrilled to get that call and try to do whatever we could to make that happen. So I have met with the Arts Advisory Board, and Diana, if you don't mind pulling up the photo about the design, were a couple different options, and we decided on this large atomic kaleidoscope with 3 scopes. There's a photo of what it will look like when it is completed. So the artist actually takes 8 to 10 weeks for him to make that. So as soon as you've all decided you want to accept this piece of art, he will start working on it. I have met with the Public Works Department, and they are more than pleased to help me with the concrete pad that is required of us. So we would have to put the concrete pad, and they would actually install the kaleidoscope. We do have the responsibility of planting it and maintaining it, which is not really difficult for us, being that we do have a designated public works staff that waters every day all the flowers downtown. So it's just, oh, what's one more thing to water? So it gives you the dimensions there. If the visual, I think that with the people in there, you get a pretty good idea, but the space 54 inches high by 46 inches wide. Randy and I walked the church property. We were really interested when I was talking to the individual from the Arts Council about, I said, I want it by the plaza. We all decided that, the Downtown Advisory Board. It was like, where by the plaza? Well, I thought we really needed it by the street, so we have, not people can't just see it when they're sitting and watching the Music to Dine to or another event, but you can see it when you drive by. So Randy and I kind of worked to hone in on a spot between two oak trees along, I just have to walk you down there to see it, but.
We just have to be mindful of the root systems
Right,
and everything,
Was
but
there,
other than
was
that.
there any thought of putting it on town property?
yeah, we did discuss that.
Like out here in front of this building here, there's a nice green space there.
We
that
did talk about
Yeah.
that.
Hundreds of cars come by every day. People walk the sidewalk.
Right.
I'm worried about if you put it under the trees, then it gets kind of lost. To me, it could become a focal point.
I think the main reason we kind of shied against that was because you're gonna get so much foot traffic downtown, and it is an interactive, and we
A
would.
lot of foot
And
traffic.
that will
right here.
be where the plaza is, and we're gonna be doing a lot of events and things, so that was the thought behind
Yeah.
the Arts Advisory Council and the Downtown.
I guess it's the
Advisory Board.
timing, if the plaza was there, it
Yeah,
would make more
like-
sense
yeah,
of where you'd put it. And now we're like, let's stick it between two trees that you kind of lose it, focus of it. It's kind of hidden. The
well,
fact
we
that you
certainly
can't,
don't wanna move it
well, the fact that
twice.
you can't see it unless you're on pedestrian, because cars will be parked along the sidewalk. So you can't see it if you drive by it. So unless you actually get out, you're not gonna appreciate it, I don't think, but.
Well, it is more, and that's the whole point, it is an interactive, so. Monty, I promise you this, next time we get a piece of public art, don't think I didn't think about that spot, because I did. We will,
And I
we
don't-
would-
Next time I donate one, that's what I'll
You
specify.
mark my words, we will have something out there at some point. It is a great spot, and I don't disagree with you, because we did talk about a few different locations.
Well, I think that what we talked about was that's so interactive that it would make more sense to have it down there because that's gonna be a gathering place. What already is, but it'll be much more of a gathering place and be utilized there. Now visually, yeah, you probably see it
Right.
more
So
here, but. it
when you
won't
say
be-
interactive, what does that really mean? Because does that
You
thing
look
spin
through the
around?
little
You've got like a
kaleidoscopes.
Yeah, you
kaleidoscope.
look
But it
through the
looks
little
fixed.
pointer, and the bowl spins. inside.
There's 3 mounted kaleidoscopes on it.
And it's in the social district, bro, so you
Yeah,
keep
come-
social district. open.
You might see all kinds of things. Yeah. So it is on, this again is also on church property. So when Rich went, he killed 2 birds with 1 stone and discussed, this was a little easier to, probably a little easier to sell to the church board, but
In a similar vein, there were several questions about location, and I think from where you initially talked about, maybe it slid over a handful of feet.
right.
Concerned about whether the concrete pad was going to interfere with roots. It's only 6 to 8 inches thick, so it won't be down very deep. Concerned about it being a potential tripping hazard if the pad was raised above the grade. So no, it'll be at grade level, so we won't have that kind of an issue. Talked about maintenance, who's going to be responsible for it. And again, suggested that we have a written agreement that lays out, obviously the town is going to place it there, the church's willingness. Church changes its mind, we'll move it. We're responsible for maintenance. And kind of identifying where it's going to go in writing. So supportive. Even, I think there was a sense that the global nature of the sculpture, bringing in the plant growth, got to some of the larger scale view of things and global view, sustainability, life generating, which I think some of the members of the trustee board felt that, that was kind of that's what they would be looking for in a piece of art on their property. And so I think that helped with as well, that nature of it. I think humored me when I suggested that.
One thing to note, the kaleidoscopes are removable, so during the winter months, we can take them so they don't crack. And the artist, those are gonna, they're gonna need maintenance. The artist will repair or replace those as needed.
At a cost, but
Right, right. But it's not like, oh, you get this, well, I don't know what to do once the kaleidoscope falls apart, kind of thing. So anyway, I'm thrilled that they wanted to donate to us, and that they wanted it in our downtown. So
does Art Council want any kind of sign on it? I never thought about that.
they didn't really say anything about that.
So you would like for us to vote on the acceptance?
Yes.
I have a motion.
It's just the acceptance, not the placement.
It's just the acceptance of it.
Abstain or not anything?
You can abstain.
Okay, then I'll vote for it.
Is there anybody that is opposed to?
There's no financial
the location?
gain.
I know Monty.
No,
wants it
that's
for
true.
the City
Okay,
Hall,
I just
but
wanted to make sure.
that's kind of, yeah, if, I don't know.
Take weeks to do it. Let's take it.
Okay, let's take it, move forward.
All right, motion carries. Letter D, assignment of classes to grades amendment 001.
So each year during the budget process, when you vote on the budget, you also vote on our pay plan. We adjust that annually. As the fire department is planned to add new firefighters later this year, the chief is here tonight if you have questions about how he's thinking of it. Chief was interested in creating a firefighter position. Step below our fire engineers, which is currently we hire people as fire engineers. So we were going to be bringing this to you at some point in the future once that hiring process was getting closer. Now, we've had a resignation, which I reported at our last meeting. And the chief's goal is to ultimately have one firefighter for each shift. We'd like to start with this shift, or with this vacancy, if you will. And do some reorganization with the loss of that lieutenant's position. So with that plan in mind, we had to do something a little bit sooner on the graded assignment, classes and grades assignment. So I'm asking you to vote to amend the document, include a position for firefighter, as well as adjust the fire engineer position on the existing plan. Which will put us in a more sort of competitive point of reference with neighboring communities that are hiring currently a little bit higher than we are. So be shifting it up a little bit.
A motion to approve.
Can I ask a question first? Chief Massey, I appreciate you being here. How many applications do you get? I know that's always something we always talk about, is being able to attract talented people who fit, be an asset. Do you have a hard time getting people?
So my understanding, the last time we hired, which was earlier this year, we received one application. And so part of the reorganization was, instead of our entry level position being a fire engineer, which is actually not really entry level, it's an experienced firefighter that can drive, pump a truck, is to drop the entry level down to firefighter, which should broaden the applications. So now we can take people that aren't necessarily experienced or experienced in driving and start them at an entry level position and train them up through the department.
That's what I was thinking. I'm glad you shared that.
Similar to what we did with police hiring last year, we hired 1 or 2 cadets who were still in the academy, hired them while they were there at a lower wage. They were going to school for us at that point, and then once they became certified, then they got promoted to police officer 1.
So that way you get to train them the way you want them to, right? That's definitely a plus.
Motion.
Motion.
Second,
Second that.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Letter E, discussion of annual retreat and neighborhood meetings.
Philosophical discussion.
Wait, can I put on my Mayor Jerry Tully hat and tell you that you have 10 minutes?
3 minutes.
10 minutes, sure.
Oh, 3, sorry, you have 3.
So every year we have our annual retreat. And we try and accomplish two things which are somewhat opposed to each other. We talk about our visions and our goals for the community. We talk about our budget. And the budget certainly clouds the discussion of visions and goals. One of the things that we had talked about prior, as COVID was just starting to take off, was the idea of neighborhood meetings. Meetings in different parts of town to meet with residents. So what I'm suggesting is that reorganize our retreat process and this year have a series of 2 or 3 neighborhood meetings, which we can have some generic questions to at least prime the pump and use that as an opportunity to hear from residents on whatever issues they want to bring to the table. Gee, you don't do enough this for this group. You don't do enough for this. You do too much of that. Boy, this is a nice idea, but you really blew it. Try and do it this way. Those kind of generic conversations, what people would like to see from their town. And in October, we would have our strategic planning session. Whether we host it ourselves, whether we bring in a facilitator, we could discuss that. But that would give this board a chance to define what it sees for the town looking forward. Those results then will inform our department heads as we start to put together our budgets in January to present to you in February. You can see how our budget proposals affect the strategic plan and the goals that we've established. It's a little bit different way of approaching it. It's a little bit more methodical, but one of the things I've felt comfortable with is that every time we talk about goals, it's always about the current budget. Hear from department heads, gee, I need a new truck. That suddenly becomes a goal. Oh, we need a new truck. I think we need to be responding to your goals as much as you're responding to the professional information that we bring. How's that?
I think I like it. I do like the idea of having more than one retreat. It kind of brings us together for larger discussion, more than just the one time a year. I think that my only question is with the neighborhood meetings, I think that we need to make sure that when we have those, that we also think about what's already in the plans that people have participated in as well. So if somebody says, we want a sidewalk here, for example, we also need to make sure that that is addressed in the lighting, pedestrian, whatever plan.
Yep.
And not just, oh, so-and-so wants sidewalk here, but, so making sure that our planning was not done in vain.
And I'm not suggesting that we have this sidewalk and lighting plan and throw it out the window because somebody says they want a sidewalk.
Right.
They didn't anticipate one. It might be that you're right. We follow up on that and realize, situation has changed since that sidewalk plan was done 5-6 years ago now. Okay, so, and maybe the resolution of that issue becomes, we add it into the plan and we figure out where it needs to go. So that could be the outcome as opposed to dropping everything and building a sidewalk. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a great opportunity. I think we need to engage with different communication sources than we typically use. So not just relying on Facebook, newsletters or whatever else that we typically do, but also like do some proactive outreach to like the HOAs. There's an Ashley Woods, and I think they kind of feel like they're off on their own little island on the other side of town sometimes.
As far as the neighborhood meetings, my thought would be is to divide the township into 3 sectors. Mail postcards. It's a little bit more expensive, but we can't really define or just, can't distinguish our newsletter to different zones of town. So if we were to send postcards, hey, council's holding a neighborhood meeting for your part of town on this date, this time, this location.
Where will we meet? Will we meet in that sector?
If there's a place to meet, we might draw the sector so that it includes places to meet. We might have one sector, as an example, included the community church. We might have another sector that included the Baptist church on Haggard, or maybe if the Baptist church on Lynn, or Presbyterian, that. I would like not to do it here, although this is really convenient for me. Don't have to haul stuff around. Meeting out in the community gives it a different feel to it.
A kind of an idea of what kind of night, day, weekend idea that, have you had any experience with this, of how this has worked in other communities in the past? I think
When I've done them previously, we've always done them at night.
a weeknight.
Typically, because I had an hour's drive. So we did it when I was there. We can talk about that. That makes sense.
We have our regular meetings and then we have these others. So it's just a matter of where to put them. So what process would you be looking at right now? Then saying you want us to say, yes, green light, go for it. You're going to give us some possible dates and stuff like that.
Right. And what would probably happen, whether it's this week or while I'm gone, is polling you folks to find out what 3 nights we could meet on, say, the last half of September.
So would it be the full board or 2 members of the board?
It'll be the full board. These will be advertised meetings. It'll be a meeting of the board, meeting of the council. But it'll be out of the setting. It'll be at card tables, whatever. It'll be a formal meeting. And so while I'm gone, we can figure out what those dates look like. And then we get the postcards put together and mailed out at the end of August, 1st of September. Inviting people to come. To the extent we have room on the postcard, we include the types of questions we want to ask. What do we do really well? What can we do better? What do we do too much of? What don't we do enough of? Kind of questions.
Are we gonna offer food?
If you want to offer food, we'll offer food.
Do we have funding in the Board of Aldermen budget to handle that? No.
It's the Board of Aldermen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Town
we do it
council,
the town council.
We do in the council budget, but we don't on the alderman.
but do we
I mean,
have?
we're not gonna be providing dinners. We probably would have some cheese and cracker plates and, I mean, fruit plates. I think we could swing that. Yeah.
501c3 gonna be up.
Is that?
Downtown 501c3 gonna be up by then. Yeah, some food.
I don't have any money
They don't have
yet.
any money. How are they gonna donate? Okay, well, we can deal with that
Yeah.
later.
Those details we can figure out later. Really is whether you want us to, at a staff level, to start putting this together for September. Figure out what the date is gonna look like in October and whether we want to bring somebody in or not.
They would all happen in September. So 3 meetings in September in addition to our 2. I just want to kind of get my mapping, personal mapping.
If you want to do 2 in September, 1 in October, we can do it that way. I don't want to push it too far
No, I understand.
because then we're starting into November, perhaps with a retreat. Which would still,
Sure, realistically, we're all available for that kind of. load.
and your availability might drive that question. If we can only find,
Available that many dates.
So are you thinking like a an outdoor place that you could have, I don't know, 100 people? I don't know if you show up.
I'm thinking probably more of an indoor place.
An indoor place?
You know, like I said, the CLC at the community, Elon Community Church. Downstairs at the Elon First Baptist Church. The function room, the church on, the Baptist Church on Haggard.
We have Betchment Park.
Maybe
I thought about that.
maybe at Bethschmidt Park. Not as large as some of the other venues. We don't have a conference center that we can use, so we are kind of limited. You know, the school probably has facilities, quite frankly. I think not having it on campus, I think would sit better.
Yeah, I think, so. I think, obviously your church has been gracious. I think there's churches that would be open to that
Well, I
opportunity.
think they would too.
To use their facilities. I think that's a great
I
idea.
think you've had meetings at the Shallowford Church in the past. Is what I've understood. So there are, they happen to mostly be churches, but they're the ones that have, you know, function rooms that could accommodate 50 or 60 people.
I'm all for it. I think meeting the people where they are, and getting more input, and us really not driving the budget goal and really our bigger goal, something we need.
For 50 cents a postcard, I would deliver 100 of them probably.
If you're alone, I'm not gonna pay you if I want to try to save.
Well, you have to pay, yeah, you have to pay more.
Well, if it helped the budget.
Well, I just love the idea of making sure that ballpark becomes maybe its own sector or something that area.
Well,
Or at least a part of it,
part of it, yeah.
and maybe meeting in there.
Yeah.
Church. I think it's a great idea.
Just gonna throw out Thursday evenings.
That's what I was thinking too, Thursdays.
Works.
There's never a good day. I mean, just face it. Everybody's got some activity going on.
Yeah, just go something specific. Once he gives
Well,
us.
For
a couple-
me, I'm available every Thursday and I won't miss a single one.
Boy. Okay, we'll see.
I'm gonna make sure Quinn has an arrangement on a Thursday.
I will not be able.
So
to.
he
Well,
was-
if you're shooting for September, you don't have a lot of time to start planning this. Is that realistic?
Say,
Is it realistic to try to do something in September?
I think we're looking at last half of September, yeah. I mean, that's 6
You're-
weeks away.
You're still within the timeline to send a wedding invitation for September.
The wedding will be planned and done. Right?
This isn't a wedding.
I think we just put the dates out there and then, I mean,
I mean,
we're probably not gonna get all of us there at every one, to be perfectly honest with you, but we'll try, I mean, I think to strive for that.
I mean,
I mean,
there's
what-
5 Thursdays.
what we'll shoot for
I mean,
is
not to go door to door, she can go invite.
is getting a doodle poll out to you all by the end of the week with, we have a lot of options on it. Latter half of September, probably every night of the week, kind of an option. And hopefully we'll be able to find 3 nights that everybody's available, and we'll work on that accordingly. Works. And if we need to go to the first week in October, we can look at the first week in October. Actually, one of the Thursdays would be the first week in October, I think. No, I'm thinking September, never mind.
We need a vote or just say, go ahead and do it.
Do it.
This was a philosophical discussion, so I think we're.
Yeah, I've heard your philosophy.
Yeah, the packet says no formal vote necessary.
So we'll start working on that then.
Okay.
All right, awesome. Town manager report.
All right, just a reminder to everybody, our work session scheduled for August 22nd has been canceled due to vacation and out of town schedules. Saturday, the 13th, Cars and Coffee returns to Elon after a couple-year hiatus due to our ever-present COVID. So recommending people bring their street rods and their classic cars downtown. Stop by, other people stop by, check out the vehicles, enjoy the fellowship and the free coffee, right?
Right.
What time?
8 to 10 in the morning.
10 in the morning.
How is that being advertised?
All over town on the little sign.
Facebook.
As people come downtown.
And Facebook.
Well, a lot of them know about it, so there's a lot of shares because they're like, oh, Cars and Coffee is a known, thing.
What I was advocating is when Kathleen was here, we did a good job in Fridays of announcing some of the events. Is that something we could do again, just to,
Say that one more time.
that's what you said.
The
about
phone calls.
The phone calls, the robocalls, we would do on Fridays.
We can do those.
I think that would be helpful to remind people.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And I would be happy to record any of those that you would like for me to. I'm just sharing because somebody said that to me. Was it you? Who said that? Somebody, maybe it wasn't on the board, but somebody said, why doesn't the mayor ever invite us to anything?
Okay.
So if you want me to do any of them, I'm happy to do it.
Nice idea.
Large scale move-in starts at Elon University on the 19th. I think their international students actually start showing up on the
That's another
17th.
reason for a robocall, just to remind people.
Yep, we can do that. And just reminding the people that the Quiet of Summer will be replaced by the harmonies of 6,000 university students. So make the most of downtown while you have the chance. 19th is actually a busy day because we also have our first Music to Dine To, which returns that Friday evening on the West College Plaza. So encourage people to stop by and enjoy the tunes from Arto Funk.
Yes, we gotta have upbeat. The kids are coming back.
Is that like Uptown Punk?
Arto Funk, so music starts at 6, runs to 8. And food from our local restaurants. And to quote Jill Weston, we would like to invite people to get down.
Get down and get down. I'm gonna write that.
Slogan.
Very good.
And lastly, on the 19th, I've got music on the lawn, it's movies on the lawn at Beth Schmidt Park. Around 8:30-ish, sundown, darkness. The movie is Spider-Man: No Way Out. So enjoy the movie, free popcorn, free drinks.
No way out of getting bit by mosquitoes.
Wear your Spider-Man costume and you won't get the.
Okay, moving right along, we'll start with Randy.
Just want to say that. I'm really concerned that she's had to meet 2 meetings. with her. So we didn't continue on. My surgery went well and I'm still recovering, but I'm doing very well. And thank you for, I had to miss. One of the things I realized though was that when I got online, I was just getting home as the meeting was starting, so I couldn't have pre-registered, but I didn't even know where to. So I'm on the council. I didn't even know how to get on the meeting for Zoom. So I said something to Rich about it. So I'm just hoping that if there's any clarification we need to do for our website to kind of make that easier for people, that would be good. I'm still concerned that that our green committee or the sustainability committee has got a few people, but we still don't have everyone, and we really need. I was really hoping we could get that started by fall, so I'm going to continue to push and work for that because I still feel that that is a very important thing. And lastly, I would just say that this whole vote has ignited something in me with this development, just remembering that as a town, we really should be thinking about equitability in terms of our development plans and as well as environmental consciousness and with bonuses, in other words, we might be able to find ways to be able to create density bonuses or some other things that could help developers if they were to do more green development and that kind of thing. So to me, I feel like it's an important first step. So you're gonna be hearing more from me on that. So that's my report.
Thank you.
Oh, and September 11th, since we won't be meeting till September 13th, September 11th is our dog, we call it our Dog Day Mixer. And it's for mostly, although all the years come, but a lot of the first years come from across the historic neighborhood. But bring your dogs. If you've got a dog, come on out to our green space. It's really a great experience. They get a chance, even though they've been there just a very short time. Some of them, it's just a real therapeutic moment. And we have free hot dogs and free ice cream.
And what time on the 11th?
3 to 5.
Monty?
We want it to be a community event.
had a great night last Thursday at the National Night Out. Those of you who got to attend, I thought it was well represented by our first responders. Chief Blackwelder's not here, but I think she was responsible for a lot of that. I wish we could have had more attendance from citizens, but there was a good representation. I think the staff that was there, and Nancy, you can test, I think your firefighters and first responders had a good time there. Just a good chance to meet them and see them. And actually, some of them are pretty good cornhole players. So that was
He
fun.
practiced a lot. That's why.
But it does speak to what the chief was talking about, the resource officer. Each of those people there have a heart for what they do. I feel comfortable with our staff. I think there's a willingness to serve and protect, and that's what they do. And I appreciate that. And on a more somber note, I have condolences to the town of Gibsonville who lost one of their aldermen.
Yeah.
Mr. Thompson, who just got elected in the fall. He was young and passed away, and I don't know the details, but remember them in the town as they work to deal with that absence. That's all, Mayor.
Quinn?
Well, I think tonight's vote was a difficult one, I guess, for me in the sense of we spent 4 or 5 meetings on it, and it was a real struggle to find out how to be that elected and represented official to the public, struggling from what they're putting out, and then we're supposed to be their voice. So I think we all did that well, listened as best we could to the public. But for me in particular, it was really figuring out who I was with that. We don't meet at the end of August, so I'm looking forward to not missing a meeting. And Elon was designated to, we have an early voting site in October. It's going to be on Antioch Avenue. It's actually right behind the golf range in Elon. So we'll have an early voting stop, which would be nice to have on this side of town. And I look forward to the first music to down to. I'll be down there, and I appreciate all the staff's hard work with this Park Northwest thing. It was a big deal, and I'm very anxious to see how it moves forward.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, kind of segueing on that with the Park Northwest. I mean, that's kind of consumed a lot of us the last few weeks. And, I think it says a lot for our board and our staff that we take that very seriously and not just pass it or deny it just carte blanche. And so I think we did a lot of some good compromising. There's going to always going to be people that aren't going to agree with us, and that's okay. But I think we did a good job with that. And I personally think it's going to be a benefit to our town. Again, thanks for the staff again for all your hard work with that as well.
Thank you for that. Thanks everybody for all the hard work that you put into making tonight's vote happen. I know that there have been lots of conversations with residents and many emails and phone calls and even letters in the mail, which I always love to get, even when it's, not always the happiest, but it's exciting to get real mail. So, great public engagement. Hopefully that will continue as we do additional plans so that people are involved in the planning process so that, when something comes before the board, it's not a surprise because they were involved in the planning. And in this case, it was the land development plan that we finalized 3-4 years ago. It's been a while now. Today, I had the pleasure of joining the Mayor's Association Board of Directors meeting. And I will be attending the Mayor's Association event in Greensboro. Unfortunately, we were going to actually host it here, but the day that they wanted to have it here is when I will be in Asheville at the Clerks Association event. Jill and I are going to go and support Diane when she is inaugurated. Is that a word?
Installed.
As the president of the Clerks Association. So I will be attending that shortly after, no, before our next meeting. Also, that same week, I will be flying out to Denver to hopefully win an award as the leading wellness director by HealthLinks. So it's their big event, and I'm a finalist for their health director award. I don't really know other than that. So really excited and fingers crossed. And of course, you know, Monty informed me about Paul Thompson, and I had the pleasure of meeting Paul when I met with Mayor Williams earlier this year, and he was new. Yeah, so Rich is like, oh, that, yeah. And very engaged. You could tell that he really loved his town and really wanted to see, you know, just nothing but success for Gibsonville in the future. And so, yeah, I was very surprised when Monty said that to me, and I was like, no, I didn't hear anything. And then he told me, and I was like, wait, I know him. So, I will be sending a card if anybody else would like to sign it. Just let me know. I can leave it here at Town Hall, and anybody's welcome to sign it to send over. I think that is it, other than, again, just please continue to keep Stephanie and her family in your thoughts and prayers. Seth is home, but not yet in a place where she felt comfortable leaving him at this point. So, and with that, I will gladly welcome a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Gladly seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Me too. I know, I drank coffee and a whole.
Thank you.
I've never formally met you. Thank you. I do.
Bye, Mackenzie.
You get the award.
I know, I'll be here at every single